Okay, in this video, we're just gonna do this worksheet. And so what it says at the top, by the way, this worksheet was made, well, I got it from Jody DeVoe, but I think it was made by her husband a while back. His name was James, it is James Lang, and he used to teach at Valencia as well. They both have retired right now. But it's a great little worksheet because it illustrates the derivative as a function. So on the left, what we have is a function, and on the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then on the right, the letters A through J is a graph of the derivative of the function. So on the left are the functions, on the right is a picture of the derivative of the function. So what you have to keep in mind when you're doing this exercise is that a derivative is a graph of a derivative is basically when you're graphing the slope of the function, because that's what a derivative is. So let's look at number 1, and if we look at this, it is a line. Okay, so if you look maybe at this part of the line, you say, well, what is the slope here? And I'm just going to guess, we'll say maybe the slope is 1.5. Let's say, well, what is the slope at this part? Well, it's still the same line, so it's still 1.5. So what is the slope here? It's still the same line, so the slope at this point is 1.5. So you see that it doesn't matter what part, what x value you're looking at, what is the slope of the line at that point? It is going to be 1.5 or 1 or whatever the slope happens to be. My point is that if I were to graph the slope of this function, it's going to equal to a constant. It's just going to equal to a number. So let's look over here. We know that the graph of y equals to just a number is a horizontal line. So what we're looking for is a horizontal line. So if I look at C, I see a horizontal line, and if I look at E, I see a horizontal line, but C happens to be lying right on the x-axis. So basically they're saying the slope of this line is 0. That's not true for this function. The slope of this is a positive because it's increasing. So y equals to some positive number is what we're looking at. So look at E right here. I was guessing maybe 1.5. This is 0 and this is 1. This is in between 0 and 1, so maybe it's 3/4 or maybe it's 1.5, but it's a positive. So I'm going to go with E for number 1. I'm going to say number 1 is E. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 is a line. So what is the slope here? It's the same as the slope here. It's the same as the slope here, 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 here. The slope is the same all the time, whatever part of a line you're on. And this is a horizontal line, so the slope is 0. It's 0 all the time. So we're looking for a function over here called y equals to 0, and I think we found that right here at C, because this is a horizontal line and it's at the 0 value. So this one is going to be C right there. So we got those two. All right, now the rest of these are a little bit not quite as easy. So let's just look. If I was going to graph the slope of 3, so let's see. The tangent line right here at 3 is going to be negative and decreasing. And right here, the slope of the tangent line here is going to be negative. It's still negative, but it's not quite as sharp. It's not quite as big of a number. And it's still negative here, but it's not as negative. It's getting closer to the value of 0. And then at this point, it's 0. So what we're looking at is negative, a big negative, and then something that's not quite as negative, getting close to 0, then 0, and then what does it do? It goes positive, it goes more positive, it goes very positive, it gets a sharper, a bigger slope. So we're looking at something that was big and negative, still negative, close to 0 and negative, 0, positive, more positive, more positive. That's what the slope, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. The graph of the derivative of number 3 is going to be something that starts negative, hits 0, and goes positive. Where does it hit 0, by the way? At about x equals to 2, if we call this 1 and call this 2. When I look at these choices, if you look at I, this is something that is negative, and then it's less negative, and then it's less negative, and it hits 0, and then it goes positive, and more positive, and more positive, and it looks like it's hitting 0 at 2. So I'm going to say that this one is I. All right, let's see. I am going to look at, let's look at 4. What is the slope here? It is positive, big and positive, positive, less positive. It's hitting a 0. a 0 right there. Look at where the 0, where it flattens out. This is where it's hit it crossing the x-axis on the derivative. 0. So it was positive, less positive, less positive, less positive, 0. Little negative, negative, less negative, 0. Little positive, more positive, more positive. So it hit 0 at about 1 and about 3. Let's see if we something over here that hit 0 about 1 and 3. No, B does. This looks like right. Let's just check this out. So it is supposed to be positive, positive. So it is positive. It's above the it's above the x-axis. It hit 0 at about 1, and then it's still. Oh no, I'm saying the wrong thing. This is negative, negative. No, B's not it. I was looking at the wrong thing. It's very negative. It's very negative. That's where I'm starting. So let me see. That was a bad choice. Where can I start here? It's starting negative, so it's below the x-axis, and then it gets positive. I'm going to come back to this one. I'm not seeing it right now, so I'll come back to you. Let me skip you. Let's look at 5. This one, the slope is close to 0, and then it turns positive, and then it goes very positive. And then the slope here is very positive, and then it close to 0. So let's look over here. It's close to 0, and then it goes very positive. It's close to 0, and it goes very positive. And then the slope, remember, it's very positive, and then it goes close to 0. It's very positive, and then it goes close to 0. I'm going to call this one D. This one's D. 4 is bugging me. What did I say here? Positive. Oh, no. Oh, I already did that one. I was looking at the wrong one. This is positive, positive. Oh, okay. 4 is B. Let's look at this. It's positive, 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 0. Positive, 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 0. And then it goes negative, 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 0. Negative stays negative till it gets to 3, and then it goes positive again. This is B. I started looking at number 3 for some reason. Don't start looking at the wrong graph like I did. Okay, let's look at 6. Remember, we're looking at the slopes. So it's close to 0, and then it goes very positive. Then it's less positive, less hits a 0 point. Then it's negative, more negative. Then it goes less negative, and starts to get close to 0 again. So it starts off close to 0, and then it's positive, and then it hits 0 about 2. Let's see if there's somewhere else where it's hitting 0 about 2. And then it goes, maybe this one. Let's see. It starts close to 0, and it goes positive, and it gets less positive, and it hits 0 at 2, okay? And then it goes negative, and more negative, and then it gets close to 0, more negative, and then it gets close to 0. That looks like A, okay? Let's look at 7. Starts close to 0, and then it increases, and then it keeps increasing. We're looking at something that starts close to 0, it increases, and then keeps increasing. This particular function, its derivative looks just like the function itself. 7 is going to be F. All right, that leaves number 8. We are positive 0, negative 0, no, negative, negative, negative 0. So where are the 0 points? The 0 points are at 1. It's going to hit 0 at 2. It's going to hit 0 at 3. It crosses 0 3 times. Let's see, who does that? He does that. G does that. Let's see. It's positive. It hits 0. It's negative until 2 and hits 0. It's positive, and then it starts to hit 0 again. I think 8 is G. Let's look at 9. The slope is positive, and then it gets close to 0. Okay? It's positive, and then it gets close to 0. That's going to be J. Remember, keep in mind, you're always looking at the slopes. Okay, you could just match the last one just by looking, but let's just make sure it agrees. The slope is flat, so it's close to 0, and then it goes positive, and then it goes close to 0 again. It's close to 0, and then it goes positive, and then it goes close to 0 again. So that's going to be H. So that is this matching worksheet. And so you might want to just, Work through it again until you get it in your head. I'm trying to look at the slope of this graph and make it match what's happening over there.